We hear the catchphrase, everybody needs to wake up all the time. What does that mean? Waking up is a journey. And I'm going to tell you how YouTube helped me wake up. Depending on where you're at in your life and what has transpired in your life, generally what happens is something traumatic happens, or you're looking for the answer for something and you go on a deep dive search looking for the answer. Well, it just so happened to be that YouTube was my go-to. Obviously, prior to YouTube and all of these social media apps, we didn't have a go-to. We were reading self-help books. In my case, my journey began with relationships, several relationships, I'm going to say several, my marriage failing, and a couple of relationships that were very toxic. Therefore, I began to study a little bit of psychology and narcissism, and one thing leads to another. You start to wake up. You start to realize, like in one of my videos I said, we've all been lied to. And our society has become very toxic. And so I mentioned the micro and the macro. And my job was somewhat political. I did some lobbying and stuff at state level for our industry. And not that I love politics, but what started to happen is I started to see the toxicity, and it just made me want to know what the truth was. My YouTube subscriber list is about 50-50 news, podcasters, and entertainment. I haven't had cable TV for 8 years, since I moved back to North Dakota, since I had cancer. And that was another hurdle that I went through. Cancer, if you're a survivor, probably knows that creates what I call radical acceptance. No matter what your life is like or what is going on in your life, it's an acceptance that you can't deny. So facts become very important to you, because facts allow you to make choices in your life that are in your best interest. So it's important that you have the facts and you're not making decisions based on an emotional feeling, which is where that toxicity comes into. And it's an immature way of thinking about things. And it's so hard to get that through to people. Even me back in the day, I didn't know what it meant to wake up, or I didn't know what it meant to make a choice based on feelings, fact or feeling. I say it all the time. And it's a constant battle on a daily basis. It's really something that you have to apply to your life. It's called discernment. Discernment between what you're seeing, hearing, compared to what you're feeling and what you want to believe. So I'm going to start out with the news, then the podcast, and then I'm going to share some of the fun ones at the end and some of the stages that I went through in between. Okay, the very first one I want to start out with is way back, goes way, way, way back. And I resisted watching this guy and it's all because of my son. But if you watched him today, all you're going to find is an angry man, because he's been trying to wake people up for years. And his name is Mark Passio. So if you want to understand where he's coming from, you need to go way back to the beginning. I don't watch him anymore because all he does is cuss and swear, which is kind of funny. if you followed him at all. I think he finally gave up. He was trying to recruit people to spread the message. That one, I would recommend the 10 Hermetic Principles. I can't even tell you what they are right now, but that was the beginning of the big lie. And all the stuff that they've been shoving down our throat all these years. Setting him aside, when I was going through the narcissistic stuff, I started liking to listen to Richard Grannon, who is English, and I loved listening to him, which led me to Sam Vaknin, who's supposedly very intelligent and a narcissist himself. As they went along, they were talking about societal stuff. And so you start to make the connection there. Sam Vaknin is pretty smart guy, but considering he's a proclaimed narcissist, him and Richard in the last couple of years kind of went their own ways. Kind of like the whole Elon Trump thing. Not saying that Elon's narcissistic, but I think there's some pretty big egos going on there. And, only one can be in charge. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I wish they'd just knock it off and behave themselves. But from that, in the meantime, I've been watching, obviously, I'm a Republican, so I watch Fox News, and I watch Rumble, I watch Alex Jones, because he has a different insight to things. He's doing he does more of like a global type thing. What's going on in Israel, and what's going on in Romania, and what's going on overseas in the UK. And there's a lot of names and stuff that he throws out that you might recognize. And he interviews a lot of people whistleblowers. And this morning he had interviewed somebody yesterday, from the CIA that they had went after. It's all really interesting to know that stuff because it's not on the news. I also like to watch Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson interviews people from all different industries and people that are in the government, people that aren't in the government, people that are in the medical field. I also like to watch Joe Rogan periodically. He's a Democrat. He interviews all kinds of different people because he started to question things. Same with Dr. Phil. He's a Republican. He started to question things too. So when they start questioning things, then you know that you're not as crazy as they try to say you are. You're not as deplorable as they say you are. But when you open your eyes up to the reality that we have a very corrupt system, how do you navigate that? I'm at an upper age, so I want to know, how am I supposed to live out the rest of my life? What kind of hurdles am I going to have to deal with? That's why I'm interested in the politics. And when Biden became president, I started to get into a little bit of prepper stuff, which also became kind of a hobby for me. I collected all the stuff that I needed because I live in North Dakota and I needed a fireplace, which I do have. I needed a chainsaw, which I sold because I couldn't start. And I just bought firewood. So I have a garage full of it. Making sure that you have a barbecue grill, or, there's lists of things out there that you should have just in case. And then once you get the basics, which I'm kind of a long ways away from, but I also started watching like the homesteaders and gardening shows and homesteading, off-grid type stuff, which I still watch because I enjoy the people that I watch. They're authentic, they're young, they're ambitious, they're brave. A furniture flipper, because that's a hobby of mine too. My son just drug a desk over to me this morning at 5 o'clock in the morning that I'm gonna redo at some point when I find the time. So it became kind of like a survival thing for me. How am I going to survive if they say shit hits the fan, SHTF happens? Well, I mean, if it's that bad, I hope God just takes me instantly, because, you know, I live in North Dakota and it's very cold here in the wintertime. That's why I think a motorhome is like right up my alley. I can go south in the winter, come back in the summer. And I can do that. If nothing happens, I'll be tickled pink. So that's kind of my goal. Unless I fall into $1 million worth of monies, I'll buy a little place and I'll have a little tiny home. That's what I'll do. My journey to waking up is something that I want to stay awake, so I stay up with the stuff. And the more you listen and the more you hear and the more you see, the more awful it really is. I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to turn out, but I'm pretty excited about the motorhome. I'm pretty excited about the next 10, 12 years, if I live. I'm excited. I'm excited because I'm happy now, and I know that I'm going to do what's best for me. And I think that everyone needs to have discernment and be able to make choices based on fact. And you know, I just think it's super important that people pay attention nowadays. I mean, they get tidbits of this and tidbits of that and maybe don't even think about it again. I mean, they know that they can distract us with this, that, or the other, and we forget about this, that, and that. So it's really important, if you want to thrive in this world, that you know what's going on. And I think a lot of people have woke up. And again, it's everybody's personal journey, because everybody's starting from a different place. Some people never will wake up. Some people will never have something so traumatic happen to them that they will question things. But for those of you that do question what the best thing to do is, then just start doing some research. Ask the simple questions that you've always wondered. Look for the answers. It would take me 2 hours to go through the things that I've questioned in my life. Starting at a young age, I questioned the church. I've questioned why this and why that. I've questioned all kinds of things. Is there UFOs? Is there that? Is there this? Why do people do this? Why do narcissists say that? Why is there so many transgenders nowadays? All of a sudden, what's going on with these vaccines? Should I take one or not take one? Stuff like that. You need to know the history of how we got to where we got, so that you know that when you make a decision that you will feel good about it. My daughter took that vaccine twice because she had to, because of college. Honestly, knowing what I know now, after the fact, I would have told her to quit college. Thankfully, she's okay to this point, but it's concerning. Them are the kinds of choices and decisions you have to make based on the craziness going on in this world. But that's my advice, and that's exactly what I think today.
10 times, 1,000 times actually easier than the chainsaw mill. The 10 minutes with the resetting it up and everything. Game changer.
Yes, I love you.